Welcome to Vino with Vito. Let's not forget Nina.
Hi.
And today we have Al Scazzafabo. He's an attorney, which he does divorce attorney law, correct?
That's correct.
And he does all
I'm
divorce.
excited for this one.
Hopefully somebody we will never need to use. I'm sorry to say that, but I hope I never need your services out there, Al. But I'm sure there are a lot of people that do, need your services there. I got a question for you. There are a lot more divorces after COVID, or you're seeing it basically the same as, years prior?
I see a lot more acrimony and a lot more people wanting to get divorces, but I do see recently a reticence because of the economy, which is somewhat misplaced. I think people are fearful. So in your market, for instance, I think people have concerns about the inflation, but it really is, the market has really not dipped, it is, in my view, because in my business I also have to know the market. For the timing of things. A lot of houses are sold in a divorce, as you know, Vito.
Right.
So we pay attention to the market. And what I've noticed is, and I've talked to a lot of different people in the business, that the real estate has not gone, it went up, and it has not gone down, it has stabilized somewhat. So people have a lot of reticence. They're also worried about their 401ks, their pensions, and so forth because of the sort of the volatility that they've seen, and so they're being reticent. But certainly there has been an escalation post-COVID in the familial acrimony that is, and so people are calling me, and I'm not ready, but I might be ready in 3 months. That's kind of the
So when they
the
come
feedback.
to you,
Yeah.
right? So if someone's going to get divorced and they come to you, how does it, some people use mediators,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Now, do you suggest a mediator? How does that get to happen?
That's a very good question. Back in the old days, we used to just file a complaint for divorce. People say, I want a divorce. What I've taken to doing, and a lot of other practitioners have too in recent years, is discussing mediation before the filing of the complaint. Meaning, you're retained, the other side gets an attorney, you select a mediator, and you go to mediation with your
With
attorneys.
Okay, I didn't know that.
You don't have to, but I always tell clients it's better to go because you can go to a mediation if you don't know exactly what your rights are. The mediator, and I do mediation as well, mediator cannot give legal advice, right? So a lot of times people find themselves in a mediation and they have questions. What are my legal rights? Am I waiving something that I shouldn't be waiving? Am I not getting something, or am I getting less than I should be? And then ultimately, what do they have to do? They have to speak to their attorney anyway. So I always say it's good to go with an attorney to the mediation. And you enter in what's called a tolling agreement, or what we call a cutoff agreement. So normally, once you file a complaint for divorce, the marital asset, marital debt, she only wants a little bit, Vito.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot more. And by the way, I don't want to cut you off. Al bought a nice bottle of Justin Cabernet today, which we're going to enjoy. Nina's only going to drink a little bit today.
And I will be sending you and Nina a bottle of Camus each.
Salud, guys. Sorry to interrupt you there.
So what we do is a cutoff agreement. So we say that the agreement is as if you had filed a complaint for divorce in your court, in your county, in the county in which you live. But we didn't. But that will be the date which we will go by to cut off any appreciation in the marital asset or any further debts that are incurred.
Is it successful a lot of times?
A lot of times it is, yeah. And there are sometimes it's just there's a need to file the complaint right away. But what people don't realize, you could spend a year in mediation and then ultimately have to file a complaint anyway, and they say, oh boy, all that time was lost. But it really wasn't, because during the mediation process in that year, you've exchanged discovery, you've exchanged financial information, and so not all is lost. And in fact, a lot more is gained, but there's no way to really quantify it. What happens is, as soon as you get into court, the judges, especially like in Essex County and Passaic County, Morris County, Bergen, they're very inundated. And so what they do is they have scheduling orders, and they'll say there's a case management conference. You have to appear. And sometimes not much is accomplished, or the attorneys in the back channel are actually accomplishing or have accomplished things, and it wasn't necessary, but the court has an obligation to make sure that they see the parties. So you're spending time with your attorney where it's creating additional attorney costs that were unnecessary, that had you just gone to the mediation without the court's involvement at that point, you could have saved yourself a lot of money. So
I should have been a mediator growing up.
you still can
you,
be.
you would be
know?
good at it, I think.
I think I would be good at it.
You still can
Yeah, I
be.
can still do that?
Yeah, in New Jersey, there are, and I'm seeing a rise in that. And it's not that I don't recommend it. I do think that matrimonial or family law background or experience is really necessary. But mediators, you can get to become a certified mediator. You can take the courses, and you don't have to be a lawyer or a divorce
How long
lawyer.
does it take?
I'm not really sure, but there is the New Jersey State Bar offers the course. You can do the course in a week, I believe, but it's every day for a week.
Yeah. We'll do that.
Yeah, growing up,
Although I don't know if I'd be a good one, because I would they would if you know how I get when people tell stories that are too long.
forget
I
it.
just I'm looking right through you and I don't hear anything you say, so I probably wouldn't be a good one.
I wanted to be a lawyer when I got out of school. The only thing that stopped me, I didn't go to college, but I really did want to become a lawyer. I should
You
have
would
went
have been
to
a good
college.
one because you're a good negotiator.
Yeah,
So
I should have went to college and became a lawyer. But a lot of people say, when they're going through a divorce, hey, I got to go back, I got to call my attorney. I got to call my attorney, the husband, the wife, because we've done sales of houses that people, are divorced. And I always tell them, look, you can call your attorney and have your attorneys work it out, but it's going to cost you a ton of money because I'm sure every time they call you, your clock's running.
Well, most attorneys. Most attorneys.
Right. I
don't do that.
You help a lot of people out. We've had discussions before, but there are some people out there where, every time they call their attorney, here it's another $500, or they write a letter, it's $1,000 or whatever, and you're negotiating the deal on their home, and they're like, wait, I got to call the attorney. I say, there's no need to call the attorney. Let's talk, the three of us, and figure it out. Once everything is done, then call your attorney and get it going.
Well, and that's why when you and I spoke, I thought it was a great opportunity for this for both of us, really. But what a lot of people that are out there, and we get them in the street all the time, people who know you, people who know me, come up to us and ask us similar questions about that. And there's certainly a need for it, to have a good realtor who's been around and has handled those types of situations, right? Because, look, in the real estate market, as you know, there's a large percentage of the listings that are made up of listings that are emanating from divorce cases, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of realtors and real estate attorneys, and they don't want to be bothered with that. And it's really unfortunate because there's some good realtors out there, good real estate attorneys like yourself, and people need to know that if you have a realtor that's had experience in selling, listing, and marketing homes as part of the divorce, it can go very seamless. What's interesting is, the parties are litigants against one another. They're adversaries in the divorce case, and on the real estate side, they're transactional parties. And so a good realtor knows that. That's why.
Yeah.
we had
But we needed to get the message
realtor that she was very new. She didn't know what she had to do. She went down. The husband signed the papers. She didn't realize that he was going through a divorce. Didn't ask the right questions, and then that was I think it was on for a day, and then the ex-wife found out, and she was like, absolutely not. I'm not signing anything.
Believe it or not, in 24 years of doing this, yes, I've had been in, probably well over 200 or more, 250 residential sales where my clients were selling the house as a result of the divorce, which really doesn't necessarily affect me, other than there are some I could tell, but there are some horror stories, but they're actually smaller than you think. The large number of them, as long as you have a realtor that knows what they're doing, and a real estate attorney that knows what they're doing,
That's
it can be very seamless. So what we normally say is where you normally see this come up is, and I could tell you some funny stories.
Please tell us funny ones.
You want to hear a funny one?
Yes.
Okay, so I had a case many years. I was just starting out, and the husband had a lot of money. The wife wanted the home. but wife had not worked in many years. She was having a hard time. She couldn't really buy out the interest. The husband didn't really care if it swung, if the yield on the equity was 50,000 more, 50,000 less. To him, he just wanted to dump it. So immediately they get an order to list the house for sale. But she's living in the house. She continues to live in the house until until it's either sold or the case is finished. And so the realtor, who didn't really necessarily know, he also a young fellow at the time, has an open house. He shows up, and this woman was meticulous about her person. She was very clean. She was had a lot of pride in her appearance and so forth. Kept a beautiful home. He shows up for the open house. There's laundry everywhere. Dishes are in the sink. She didn't even smoke. She was on the couch, sitting there smoking a cigarette.
No way.
Because she wanted
She didn't want anyone buying that house.
She didn't want anybody buying the house, and so
That's so fun.
and this went on, and here's
Smart.
here's the sort of the moral within the story, right? So this went on for quite a while, and it wasn't selling. But the realtor never brought it to anybody's attention. He just kept showing up at these open houses, and these open houses were being sabotaged, if you will. And then finally it came to the attorney's attention. But we can't do much as a divorce attorney unless we know what the heck's going on.
Right.
And then once we did, and you as the transactional person, you can write a letter that outlines to both parties. Of course, you have to copy everybody,
yeah.
but say this is what's happening. And then we were able to get an order from the court that said, look, you can't be there during the open house, and if you don't straighten this mess out, the lawn was, the grass was about a foot high. And so the judge said, no, I want it cleaned up, or at your own expense, we're hiring somebody to come in and do it. And once that was done, right away she backed off. And so, but again, had an experienced realtor been in there, that realtor would have reached out to both divorce attorneys and said, this is what's going on. Yeah, and we also, one of the big issues that we get is there's usually two lists, right? There's a wish list as a realtor. When you see a house, when you go out to look at a house for the first time, the first question you probably get is, what can we list it for? And you look at the house and you say, well, if we did this or we did that, a couple little things here and there, I could list it for X. In the as-is condition, you're not gonna be able to list it for more than Y. Okay, and then there is the other list, which is the necessary items that, like, look, I can't even list it unless we take care of this stuff, right? And so a good experienced realtor like yourself comes in right out of the gate and says, these are the two wish lists. These are the necessary items. And then what we do as divorce attorneys is we usually have an agreement that says we'll follow the recommendations of the realtor. And the reason we do that is because invariably there will be a headbutt between the two parties, because one party, because usually it's the moneyed spouse is going to advance that cost. And sometimes, as you know, you could spend $25,000 for a net yield of an additional $50,000 or $75,000 or even $100,000 in some cases. But the moneyed spouse says, well, I don't really care. So I'm not going to lay out the $25,000 to fix the crack over here or to fix this.
Or the other thing we would tell the sellers too is, and it's happened in the past, where, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, I think I'm going to put another $20,000, $30,000 and get it, and I look at it sometimes, I'm saying, you know what,
Don't even
save
do
your
anything.
money, because
You're not going to make it back.
you're not going to make it back. You might spend $20,000, $30,000 and not
it's-
even see it.
And
And
that's
it's
because
still not what somebody else wants. Like, you're going to...
precisely that, and that's because you're the
Everyone's got
expert.
their certain tastes.
And so we rely on you. I mean, look, I'm very knowledgeable, and you and I might have a very intellectual conversation about it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to defer to you, because look. While I know the market, you know it much better than I do. So that's what we do. And what happens when I'm fighting for the non-moneyed spouse? Every dollar counts.
Oh yeah.
And so you imagine if you sold the house for $50,000 more. Well, it might not mean anything to the other person. That $50,000 additional, when you split it between the parties for the other party's share, it's $25,000.
That's a lot of money.
So and if you're telling me it's an investment, if you say, Al, the parties invest $25,000 or even 10 or 15, it may cause me to list this house for $75,000 more. Well, that's significant, right? And so that's where a good realtor and the synergy between a good realtor and two good divorce attorneys can really come together to optimize the benefits and the results and then also make it seamless. So there is no, or there's a minimization of the acrimony between the party.
What's the longest it's taken, like, for you, the cases you've had? What's the
That's the
longest?
favorite question of everybody. Every client I get, the first question
How long is it going to take?
how long is it going to take?
How long is it going to take, and
And
how
I
much money is it going
and
to
I say, well, look, it's anywhere between 2 months and 6 years. Now, look, the truth is that most are tracked for a year, but especially during the pandemic and so forth, a lot of the courts are behind schedule. We have a lack of every vicinage. In every county has less judges than they probably should have. That's been a problem, a pervasive problem for many years. And the judge are
The big words again. You know I didn't go to college, right? We got to calm down on the big words.
well, I appreciate that.
No.
The extensive problem has been existing for quite a while, which
There we
is
go.
the lack of judges. And so, look, I had cases. I always tell the story. I had a case. They probably had, if I recall, a net worth somewhere to the tune of close to $20 million. I mean, there were boats and houses. There was houses in multiple states. There was a business. But both parties were sophisticated, very reasonable. They sat down. We sat down with the accountants. Had a few conferences, and inside of 6 months, we had an accounting for all of these assets, and we hatched the deal, and it was done inside 6
That's
months.
nice.
Meanwhile, though, I've had cases where the parties are W-2 wage earners. They really don't have much, and they are perpetuating the wheel, and the case is 2 years old or 3 years old, and then you'll have the judge say, "What are you folks doing?" You know, and the good judges
A lot
know
of
that
times
it's
they
not
live
the
together
lawyers.
throughout that whole time.
Time. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know how you do that.
I had a one where the husband and the wife are divorced or getting divorced, but yet they still live together.
Yes, it happens frequently.
And you start scratching your head, and then one has a boyfriend, the other one has a girlfriend, and it's like,
Unfortunately, it's very hard to maintain two households simultaneously, and so that's always been a problem in divorce cases, right? So, I always tell clients, that's another favorite question: should I move out? Do I lose ground if I move out? And I always say, well, look, certainly there are some legal things that you could lose a little bit of ground on, but for the most part, the answer is no, and you have to live your life. And so if you can financially afford to get an apartment and move out, but it brings you happiness or reduces the acrimony, and look, you don't want people arguing, you want to keep that to a minimum. And if that's going to happen, then it doesn't matter. You got to put the case aside for a second and live in a mentally sane environment.
So it
for
doesn't
for
hurt your
own-
case
for your-
if you move out.
No, I mean, look, I could come up with issues. So from a general standpoint, the answer is no. But certainly factually, if there might be a reason why, I could probably come up with reasons why you wouldn't, from a legal standpoint, given the fact pattern. But for the most part, and at the end of the day, and it's the same with every issue in the case. At the end of the day, you have to have your mental and emotional health are most paramount. So you have to live your life too.
I've had some divorce cases where the husband and the wife were constantly arguing, and they would just do it on spite, where you'd bring them something and you go, "Here's a deal," or whatever. "I'm not signing that." "Well, why?" "I don't want to. She pissed me off yesterday," or vice versa. "He pissed me off." I'm like, and that's when we get involved as experienced realtors, and that's when we can, write an email to both attorneys and say, "Look, this is what I have. This is the situation," and then it gets settled that way. But once I write that letter, then all of a sudden they start listening.
It changes things.
It changes.
The dynamic changes with
Yep.
just simple letters sometimes that everybody says, okay, what are we doing? Look, I always tell clients, one of the other big things I always get is, "I heard you're a bulldog," or "I heard you're a shark." This is what the media has sort of created, right? That it's
Right.
always good to have a bulldog or
or
a shark
shark.
for a divorce attorney. And I tell clients all the time, it's been my mantra for years, I can be when necessary. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. but you need to also start off getting, because you get more with honey than you do with vinegar, right? But what ultimately happens is if you want somebody to be aggressive, they'll be aggressive, but it's going to cost you more money, right?
Yeah.
Because every time you create more acrimony in the case, you create, whether it's the need for a motion, the filing of a cross motion, another motion, all of that just makes the attorneys make more money.
Right.
And so there is a need for it, obviously, sometimes. But you need to have a divorce attorney that can change speeds, change gears. It can't be fifth gear all the time. Likewise, it can't be first gear all the time. You have to have somebody that can adapt to the particular situation and strategize with you with the cost-benefit analysis is for each decision that is made along the way. And there's a lot of decisions that will be made along the way.
Now, do you see more divorces in older people now than you did years ago? Since people are living a lot longer now, they're not getting along, and all of a sudden now, somebody in their 60s or 70s saying, "Hey, I want a divorce."
It's an interesting question. It's very intuitive, actually. The answer is yes.
That's a good thing.
The answer is certainly yes. Yes, very insightful. The answer is yes. I think that has to do with people are getting married at a later age also. I think there are a lot of people out there in their second marriage as well. I think people have developed a sense of what I had said earlier, that life is short type of thing, and so people are more from our old ways. We're old school kind of people, but I think people have become more progressive, and they say, you know what, it's not working, I'm going to get a divorce. And so I see people in their 60s, in their 70s, and they're looking to turn the last few years of their life or the autumn of their years into their best years, and they say, I'm not happy, so we're done. I had a client come in that was 78 years old, and
That's sweet.
I bit my.
I think it's sweet.
I bit my tongue many times, but finally I had to say, I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Yes. I said, "Okay," but it was at that point. What was I didn't understand, but
78 years old and you want a divorce.
They really were miserable together, and it was something that he had said that he wanted to do for many years, and he didn't. And he said, "You know what? I've seen some of my friends pass away and everything. I'm going down to Florida, and I want to have this done before that happens." I said, "Okay."
Wow.
So I am seeing a lot of that, yes.
I got a phone call one time, and I answered the phone. This is Vito, and on the other end is a woman, and she goes, "Hey, how are you? I had sold them a house, before, then sold them another house," and out of her mouth is, "Hey, can you come take a look at the house, what we did to it and everything?" I thought they were going to upgrade and move, and she goes, "We're going to get a divorce." And I'm like, "What?" And people you don't even expect. You see him around all the time.
Less people shock me now, though.
Yeah.
I feel like so much happens that it takes a lot.
I will say
by
what's interesting as to the question that Nina had was before about how people interact in the divorce. What I have found, and of course there's an exception to every rule, I suspect, and from my sampling of the clients that I've represented, the older clients actually have less acrimony. They get along better
I would think
during
so.
the divorce, and believe it or not,
They're tired.
a lot of them get divorced and are friendly. In other words, they still go. I had one client. Now he's probably over 80 years old, and this was only in the last 5 years. And after they got divorced, they would go to lunch twice a week.
It is nice when you see that, though.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Do you ever see that video? It's I don't know. It's on Instagram. It's like someone's wedding, and the father's walking the daughter down the aisle, and he stops midway, and he gets the stepfather, and he brings him out, and they both continue to walk her down the aisle. Isn't that so sweet?
Well, I always tell
When
clients
they get along
too.
like that.
I tell the younger clients that, especially when they have children, that you may not be husband and wife, but you're always going to be mom and dad. And so don't you envision this, whether it's graduation. We just had in the area here, we've had a lot of graduations. We're going to have a lot of graduation ceremonies, and you envision that even if you're divorced and it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, wouldn't it be nice to sit at a table
Yeah.
for the benefit of the child,
Yeah.
right? child loves mom, loves dad equally, you know, and it would be nice for them if you could get along at the wedding.
Yeah, because you think it's got to be so hard on them if you don't get along, because they feel like they're taking sides, if you know.
Yeah, that happens a lot, and it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, if you keep that mindset, that healthy mindset that I'm dad, you're mom, and this is the mother of your children, this is the father of your children, and assuming there's no real problems with them as a parent. And I always say, people, at some point you loved each other, right? You had good times, you had laughs, you had drinks, you had.
Just get along.
And so now you can't stand. It might be you can't stand each other, but there was a period where that wasn't the case. So try to channel that energy, and for the benefit of your children.
Did you ever see the movie Stepmom? So sad.
I think I did.
It's a tearjerker with Susan Sarandon and Julia Roberts.
I don't believe I've seen that one.
Yeah, I don't.
If you're not a crier, you'll cry.
Yeah, I try not to watch movies that make me cry. I cry enough. No, just. Speaking about everybody getting along, the kids are having a graduation, you know, at West Essex, and they had their senior ball, and that you saw couples, you know, an ex-wife and an ex-husband, you know, come with the kid, and the ex-husband with the girlfriend, the ex-wife with the boyfriend, but they did do it, and they were, you know, civil and brought, you know, the kid there, which is a great thing, like you said.
It really is.
They got to be parents.
Yeah.
You know?
I've had a lot of people report back to me too that they became better friends following the divorce. Than that was the marriage was interfering with. They really did get along with one another, but in a different way.
Yeah, they were probably more like friends after.
They were, and it's a very success. If you can accomplish that, it's very successful for your children. I've had cases where in the divorce litigation, the wife has got a boyfriend, and my client may have been, one in particular client hated him. There was this resentment and so forth, and then years later, talking to the client, I stay in contact with a lot of clients. They invite me to stuff, and because I try to create a very a close trusting relationship with them that usually
You're
carries.
very likable. I can see that.
Oh, thank you.
While you're saying that, did you ever have a repeat customer like that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you that too. So, a matter of fact, I just saw her yesterday. But then years later, I see pictures on Facebook and so forth, and the client says, "Oh yeah, they're buddies. They go fishing together. They became." The other gentleman became a very good, very respectful, but was like a stepdad, but like a second father to the children. And my client backed off of this resentment type of thing and realized that this guy was a pretty honorable fella, and that he was doing it right. He would call him up and say, like, "Look, this is going on. I won't overstep." He'd say, "No, go ahead. You go. You do. Discipline them or whatever. You say, tell them I said it. And then they became best friends, if you can imagine that. So, but on the repeat customer, I had one woman who, I've had multiple ones, but this one comes to mind because I just saw her. But she got divorced, or she was getting a divorce. Then they reconciled. Then she called me up a couple years later, getting divorced again, and then they reconciled. And then I finally said, "Don't call me for the third time." And she did. She called me for the third time, and I did ultimately refer her to somebody because at that point, the husband, who actually tried to run me over at one point,
Actually run you over?
Well, I think to be fair, I think it was more to scare me, but he certainly did. He did, ruffle the feather a little bit, but. Ultimately, he ended up loving me. He called me up to he had a business, and he wanted me to. I said, "I can't represent you." He said, "No, it's fine, it's fine." And then I had another case. I got everything done, and the night before, he calls her up. So I ended up getting late. It was in Essex County. I come in. I have got all the agreements in my hand, ready to go. We were working on it the night before. He called her up for a little bit of information on one of these accounts. Well, it turns out they get together, and the rest is history. I show up in the morning, and she's standing there with her attorney. He's standing there, and all three of them are smiling as I get off the elevator on the 10th floor in Essex County. And they say, "Put that away," because I have the agreements, because I'm running late. So I figured I'd get them out of the briefcase. because I knew the judge was going to be, what are you guys doing? Put that away. We're not going to get divorced. I said, what do you mean you're not going to? Well, apparently the night before, things happened, and they got back together, and they said, we don't need to get divorced.
Oh, my God.
Ultimately, he called me up about 2 years later. He said, we're getting divorced. I said, oh, boy. So that happens frequently.
Wow.
And there's even been situations where the people got divorced, went through with the divorce, and then got remarried.
Married.
Yes.
Yeah. I've
I know someone that did that. They got divorced and they got remarried.
Remarried.
So they got divorced, and then I don't know if it was maybe a couple years later, they were both on a dating app or a website or whatever. They matched with each other, the ex-husband and ex-wife, and then they started dating again, and now they're still married, and they have 2 kids, and
It is extremely. Other
That's
attorneys will
wild.
say to me, I don't know how you do it, because attorneys know, as do in your business, that what happens in a divorce. So it can be very, very stressful.
yeah. But I'm sure a lot of times you think the grass is greener, and you get divorced, and then you're out there, and you're like, oh my god,
what did I do? I better go back.
I had it pretty good.
But by telling these stories, you see that even as stressful as it is as an attorney, it's probably one of the more interesting areas of practice, right? You're not just pushing paper. It's
And
not just
each one is different
transactions.
and unique.
There are these unique stories about the human condition, about people sociologically interacting, and each household's a little different, and and you see these things, and they're really good people. A lot of times you see good people just at their worst, and they're counting on you to kind of guide them through that and navigate it.
And sometimes somebody will just be, really, really upset, off the wall, and talk about divorce or whatever. Then they think about it and they say, you know what the hell am I doing? I might as well just stay here and forget about it and go back and make it work. Now, the divorces do you get a lot of divorces because it's about money? Do you get a lot of divorces that they just don't get along together?
Well, certainly, I think it's a combination of many different components. I mean, sometimes it's more narrow than that. Sometimes it's maybe there's a infidelity, and somebody doesn't have any tolerance for that, and it may be a one-off infidelity, and that's it. They find out about it, and that's it. And it's really that was the tipping off point, and that was it. In some cases, it's infidelity and it's finances. In some cases, it's infidelity, finances, and maybe substance abuse, or there's people change over time.
Did you get more substance abuse cases during and after COVID? I feel like a lot of people started to have some issues during COVID.
I think you're right, at least anecdotally, right? You're not the only person that has said that, but I couldn't tell you.
And you're in the house together,
Yeah, I couldn't tell you if that was there's no, and look, in those cases, where that comes up is sometimes it was very profound substance abuse, and so I don't know that it was COVID. I think it might have been existing for a while, but COVID might have put it over the edge, But look, years ago, even prior to COVID, I mean, that's always something that is a catalyst for divorce. Somebody's finds themselves having a problem, and then what happens with that? It's like a domino effect. They lose a job, or they're not paying attention to the finances, or they don't care about the relationship as much because they're more focused on that, and so it cascades. It becomes a cascading effect, and then it becomes all these different issues, and so. But it's usually a myriad of reasons. It's usually not one particular thing. Of course, infidelity is something that is not really tolerated by many.
Right.
So
Of course not. Well, don't forget, you get any divorce cases, you got 2 good realtors here that are, understanding, know the business.
I'm not forgetting it. That's why I'm happy to be here, because people need that message.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, we're here as agents. The way you're helping them out.
I do physical labor too. So
Yeah, she does. She actually saw a couch and threw it in a dumpster. I remember that.
I'll clean whatever has to get done.
It's another war story for another day, for
day,
another
yeah,
podcast. I'll tell you about the gentleman I had that took a chainsaw and cut the couch in half. It's a true story.
Oh, because they were
just
getting
to split
divorced?
it.
Oh, that's funny.
Said, you want half?
This
I'll
just
give you
couldn't
half.
fit out the doorway, so he had to sew it in half. But
Oh man, yeah, there you go.
That's
You want
funny.
that couch? Here you go.
take half.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But yeah, I'm sure you've had a lot of war stories and everything, and we can probably go on and on and on with this
For
but
days, and it would be
for
very interesting.
Days and days, but
I can't reveal all of them.
no, I know you can't. I know you
Because
can't.
then nobody will buy the book.
Oh man. But Al, what'd you think of this?
I thought this was fantastic.
It's great,
I
It was
right?
like
think it's,
quick, right?
I think it's great. I think, I think it's interesting, right? I think people are interested in hearing this stuff. I think it's educational. It
And then when
combines all
you'll
of
have
that.
to come back on again, because when it airs, there will probably be a lot of specific questions people are going to want you to ask.
If you'd like to have me back, I'd love to come back.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody out there, has is going through a divorce or thinking about going through a divorce, don't, before you even think about it, talk to Al.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Al will, set you straight, and
there's
he's
a-
not there for the money. He's here to help people, and that's what I like. I mean, we're here to help, and you're there to help. It's not about, hey, where am I going to get that extra, money coming in from? We're here to help everybody.
I
And
told
that's
you.
what I like about it.
Yeah.
I told you I've shortened my lifespan probably because I don't practice. I go over and above to try to save my clients my own fees, and it can be very stressful. And sometimes they're not appreciative of it too.
Yes.
And they'll say, well, I didn't charge you for $10,000 worth of work, and then they are giving me a hard time about 2 hours on a bill that and I said, well, okay, but I could have added the other 50 hours on the bill, and I didn't,
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
you give a little,
Give
they
it-
just expect more.
and they
More.
expect more. People have my cell phone. And look, the truth is, by and large, it allows me to be better available for them and better provide a better service. And most of them respect that, so they have my cell phone, and most of them respect that.
That's
And then
great.
every now and
Yeah,
then you
good.
get clients that will abuse that, but
Right.
I'm willing to do. I can't change my spots. The only reason I do this is to help people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be interested in just doing corporate transactions. It would not
Right,
interest
right.
me. I might as well be a realtor then.
There you go. Al, I got you a nice Vino with Vito shirt.
I love it.
Please wear it around
I will wear it.
Fairfield.
I will wear it in
especially
good health.
when you're walking in the park.
I will be proud to wear it.
Since the name Vito's on there, be careful with the squirrels. I was there this morning again, and they tried to attack me, but
That you
but
must.
we're-
That's because they know you're sweet.
there you go. We're all good. And wine is done. And on that note,
It was a great pleasure,
thank you.
Nina. Pleasure.
You too. Thank you so much for coming.
One day, and that day will come, when you need to buy or sell a house. And when that day does come, you need to call Vito Cantuzzi, the godfather of Northern New Jersey real estate.
Or Nina.
And if you're thinking about getting a divorce, call Al.